We are live inside our show, which is called Work on Workplace Relations with Aastha. And we are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So, looking forward to welcoming all of you on on these platforms. Quickly join in. Would love to have you here. Okay, so this is our Sunday evening live, and let me just give you a background for those of you who will be watching this for the first time. Uh, so, work on workplace relations with Astha is all about dealing with, or rather, talking about aspects of workplace relationships which are causing pain, which are a struggle for you, and how can we take them to the next level. So, the agenda is simple. We delve a little deeper into certain aspects, certain things which occur, which occupy your mind space on a daily basis, and which are impacting in some way or the other. But probably through this discussion, we can just get a different perspective. Yep. So, a very warm welcome, those of you who are joining in. I would really love for you to drop a hi. Let me know who's joining in because I can't see the names out here. But I would really love to take your names, call out our names, and say a hi to you. So, let me know. I can see some of you are here live. So, let me know. Drop in a hi. Okay. Hi, Anshuman. Good evening, Anshuman Singh. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for joining in. Great. So today we will be talking about the topic is co-workers are not your friends. Okay, and this is quite interesting because we talk about workplace relationships. That's what the show is all about, and workplace relationships is essentially about your relations with your co-workers, and that's where we are saying we don't want or rather co-workers are not your friends. So we are kind of trying to define this whole thing, or rather clarify certain things around what is your expectation from your co-workers and how is that impacting you, what needs to be really looked into there. Hi, Ravneet, good to have you here, welcome. Hi, Jayosin. Okay. Hi, VP Gupta. I see you here. Welcome. Thank you all for joining in. And as I always say, hi, Mishi. Long, long time. Yes, pleasure to have you here. Like I always say, as we talk, please drop in your perspectives, your thoughts, your experiences around whatever we're talking about. Any questions, any queries that you have, please feel free to put them here. Let's make it a dialogue. Okay. So, co-workers are not your friends. So I've had so many leaders talk to me around their relationships with their co-workers, whether it's the boss, whether it's a colleague, whether it is a subordinate, a client, anything around that, right? And that's where this topic revolves around, are we somewhere, the whole expectations that we build up, that you build up, that the leaders build up with respect to different co-workers, right? Do we really need to delayer and get down deeper into what are those expectations all about and whether they are realistic? Somewhere have we placed our expectations very, very unrealistically from these relationships, and we are carrying that baggage, and we want people out there to take responsibility of that baggage that we're carrying somewhere. Yeah, so that's what I want to talk about. So very, very fundamentally, when we say co-workers, people at workplace, and we say chemistries, camaraderie, the bonding, you should have great relationships. That's one of the top factors for people to experience job satisfaction. That's research based. What does that really mean then when we say work relationships which are good, meaningful connections, deep connections? We need to understand that people at workplace, you cannot equate those chemistries with the chemistries that you experience otherwise outside of your professional space, right? With your friends, with other people that you have, your relatives. With your friends, it's a very different chemistry that's there, and unknowingly sometimes we set similar expectations from people at workplace. How does that look like? So uh, if you have people at your workplace and somewhere you have a good connect, and you start to expect that this is how they should be responding, this is how they should be feeling, this is the kind of bond it should be. So in your head you have a story which is coming from your idea of what that relationship should be like. But what we forget is that out there we are meeting people who are coming from different backgrounds, different upbringings, different belief systems, with with a common agenda, which is to serve that organization. The only thing common fundamentally is that you're both there to serve that organization, to bring value, to add value. And within that, your whole chemistry and the bond that you share rests on that common responsibility that you shoulder. So, you and that co worker of yours, the common agenda is organization and what is it that we have to offer. And everything revolves around making it smoother and making it easier to be able to function and create value, because you're going to be there in the organization, you're going to be there for a considerable period, but ultimately you're going to move on. Ultimately your team members are going to move on. You may not be together forever, right? And that's something you have to bear in mind. So the agenda is, the context is to have an environment where you enjoy working, where you enjoy creation together, right? Unknowingly switching it to, why is he not behaving like this? Oh, he didn't smile at me. I've had leaders say that, they don't even pass a smile, right? They don't even respond. They don't even say a hi. Now, I'm not saying that it is not important or it is not how it should be. It's not a matter of ye sahi hai ya wo galat hai, but it is more importantly around putting or placing unrealistic expectations and expecting on the other person to behave a certain way, and when he or she doesn't do it, then you somewhere put them in a katghara. You say, oh, there's something not right about it, they are not behaving the right way, they are ignoring me. And coming from where? Coming from your expectations. And sometimes, if you have experienced this other thing which happens, or leaders often say that, we started on a great note, we had a great connect, but over time what I realize is that the other person has changed, his attitude towards me has shifted. I don't know what went wrong. Now he or she doesn't talk to me as much, or they do not talk with the same kind of a body language, or the same gestures, or the same expression. It's a different expression now, right? When you see the chemistry is changing, right? Don't miss out on reflecting that there could possibly be the burden of that baggage that you are carrying and you're trying to place on the other person's shoulders. you know people are there with a certain agenda, they are dealing with their own stuff in their lives, and when here they come, what they are looking at is meaningful chemistries which make work joyous, which help smoothen the whole process, not looking at taking or picking on that extra baggage. So, unknowingly, that's a word of caution here. In the drive to have a good connect with somebody, a co worker, you sometimes may end up crossing that boundary of um, professional friendship, or if we may call it friendship, but that professional relationship. And when you do that, you don't realize you are acting out of your belief system and you think this is how it should be, but unknowingly you're stepping into that territory of the guarded territory of the other person, and you leave him feeling uneasy, and therefore you see the shift in the behavior, in the action, in the way they respond to you. So don't be surprised. It'll require you to pause and reflect on, maybe there is something which there's a gap there, and what can I possibly do. I think it is important to understand what is it that the other person is comfortable with. And how can you do that? Sometimes, why not you sit down and figure out a way of communication? what works, what doesn't work. And this is like a thumb rule, any relationship, when we talk about husband and wife, we talk about a parent and child, we talk about siblings, it always works to communicate rather than assuming and then carrying that baggage of what that person might be thinking, what is he feeling, assuming. Better to communicate and get clarity, right? Same applies to your work relationships. Having clarity around what works for somebody and what doesn't work. Is there a challenge? If you see a shift in the behavior, maybe you're crossing the boundary, but it's always good to ask and find out, and then you can mend ways. What is acceptable for the other person? People are different types, and we often start to equate, we often start to compare. Oh, he's such a jolly person, he's always there in that good mood. When I crack jokes, he always responds, and look at him, he's not as good. He's not behaving in this way, he's not responding in so and so manner. You have your preconceived notions around how people should be. One person confirms to that, you're happy, and you take that person as a benchmark, and then you start comparing others, with the same person. But all I'm saying is, hold on, pause. That may not be the right way to do it, because you are there with a different agenda at workplace. It's value creation, it's work. Within that, the byproduct, which is a byproduct, and I would say a fundamental, a foundation, is to have good relations. But the definition of good relations is, see, there could be certain prerequisites in a husband wife relation where you can say, hey, I want this, this is important in this relation, how can we create this? In a friendship, you can fight, but you are there together, you will always come back. But professionally, when you say, oh, my coworker, I want to be friends with him, well, not necessarily the other person also wants that. And maybe you can define that friendship. What does it mean for you and what does it mean for the other person? So often we generalize these terms. Friendship, we are good friends, I'm great friends with my colleague. But if you can only define what works, what doesn't work, it'll help you maintain that same level of relationship, with that same intensity of relationship, and it'll not turn sour with time, And I think that is so fundamental. So it boils down to communication. So don't worry, don't start assuming when you see things shifting, camaraderie is shifting, or when you feel the strain in a relationship, ये bond create ही नहीं हो रहा, मतलब कुछ गड़बड़ है. गड़बड़ नहीं है. It's just that maybe you two are on not on the same platform. You need to give time to let that relationship evolve. Give space for it to take its shape and form, and it'll happen over time. Hi, Rakesh. Welcome. Thank you for joining in. I'm glad, Anshuman, this resonates with you. Yeah. So please share your thoughts. What are your experiences with your coworkers? What kind of chemistries have you been looking at? Have you unknowingly somewhere placed that burden of the friendship, so-called friendship, on others? How is it translated for you? Do let me know. Maybe now those of you who are here live, or if you're listening to the recorded version later, then either ways, do let me know that. Yep. So this is what I wanted to communicate, and where is it coming from? Because in the recent past, I've had so many people within the relationships at workplace, being the context, people have shared so many different kinds of chemistries and how they get stuck in those chemistries. And one thing that just stood out are those unrealistic expectations, and that's where I think you need to be very, very clear that people at your workplace, your co-workers, are not your friends. So there has to be a certain sanctity of that relationship that needs to be maintained. They are not your friends, so your expectations can be unrealistic, can be one sided, So refrain from doing that, because that will not only leave you stressed out, anxious, and then you'll find yourself just managing that whole game. I see so many people stuck in those relationships, and then what happens is you get so busy surviving. Ye work nahi kar raha hai, this is not happening, he's not communicating, he's not responding, what is happening? And you get so engrossed in that that you miss out on that larger purpose for the organization, and larger purpose about your future, your growth. You completely miss out on that. So look at what does it then lead to, then what does it lead to, then what does it lead to. It's not about just that one relationship, right? But it is important in that larger picture, and therefore be mindful of what are you assuming about that relationship, and are you into that one sided relationship where you say this is how it should be, this is not happening. Have you ever tried to find out what space is the other person in, what is he feeling about this whole thing, what makes him uncomfortable? If there's a shift in behavior, what is causing it? Why not? How amazing it would be if we can just have these clear crisp conversations without the emotional drama around it. That takes practice, but that's what I want to say. If we can have that, we are so full of emotion. So I'm not saying emotion ko hatao ya resist karo, but all I'm saying is park it aside for some time while you're having that conversation. Like, be realistic about it. Okay, I see there is some gap. While we are working, I see there is some gap, and that's making this whole thing uneasy. Would you be willing to have a conversation so that we can resolve this? Now, maybe the other person is uneasy, but when you say this, you are giving him a safe space to speak up. And then he may say, oh yes, I feel that when you do this, it makes me a little uncomfortable, or I feel that you have certain expectations which I'm not able to fulfill. Or can we have more clarity on how can we ensure this working becomes smoother? Now you're talking. And now when you set those expectations that, I think, my whole idea was this, or can we have our work this way, and would it be okay if we could have 15 minutes of an informal chit chat? Would that be okay with you? Are you comfortable? And sometimes it's not that people are not willing to move beyond that boundary, but it's just that they have their own fears coming from their belief system. These conversations that you have one on one will help the other person drop those boundaries, those guards, I would say, will help them drop down those guards that they've created out of their insecurities, right? So it always helps. It'll open up a lot of things, I would say. You cannot define कि उसका outcome क्या होगा, but it always helps to talk. It always helps to get clarity, to be very, very specific, and uh, figure out whether you're being unrealistic in your expectations. Yep. Let me know if this makes sense, if it really resonates with you, gives you a perspective in what you're dealing with at your workplace. And sometimes when we say workplace relationships, sometimes we start to think, oh, deep relations, deep bonds means I've got to be like a very good friend with my boss, or I've got to be a very good friend with my colleague. No, 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 that's not what we are talking about. That maybe you're together for 5 months, maybe you're together for 5 years, but the point, and there could be great relationships, great friendships, but that could be a byproduct. But expecting every relationship to turn out into a great friendship may be unrealistic in terms of what you're expecting, right? And it may have an impact. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to share. Let me know what occurs for you, what's coming up for you, and what has opened up for you. The whole idea is to reflect what's happening in your life. So what is your takeaway in your own life? Let me know that. Let me know in the comment box what is your specific takeaway. How you define boundaries, behavior, and belief system. Okay, in what context are you saying? So, I mean, depends on what is the context that we are talking in. Sorry. How do you define, as in, if you could just elaborate a little more? I mean, behavior is what you are exhibiting. Behavior comes from your belief system. Beliefs are basically, your view of your way of looking at a particular person, situation, circumstance, your view of that one thing, right? People who get angry are this kind of a people, or somebody who gets angry very quickly is this, right? So you have a certain view of looking at things, of perceiving things, and that comes from where? Comes from your past experiences, from your conditioning, from maybe childhood. That forms your belief system. That's very, very deep rooted, somewhere, and that's why it's not very easy to change it. It needs a lot of intentionality, right? So that's your belief system, your idea of how things should be, how people should be, of what an action means, what a behavior means. That's your belief system, a lens, a filter for everything, basically, for every person. Belief system gives way to your behavior. So you will behave absolutely in sync with your belief system. Yeah. If my belief system is that I am not good enough, my behavior will be, let me prove myself. My behavior will be, how can I fit in here? That's the thought. And then I will only behave or act in a way so that I can fit in amongst people. I can just prove myself, so that I don't want the world to know I'm not good enough. So behavior comes from that belief system. Boundaries that you're talking about, I think, how do you define boundaries? Boundaries are basically, um, I would say, how you define what is acceptable and what is absolutely non-negotiable for me, right? So it is for when we say my mental well-being, for my mental well-being, for my peace of mind, having certain boundaries which define, or which rather, which you cannot cross, which you let people know. So one thing is creating boundaries, and the other thing is enforcing those boundaries. So when I create it for myself, that no, this is something I don't want to be compromised with, this is absolutely non-negotiable for me, I can't put up with this kind of a behavior. My boss using language which is derogatory is a big no for me, non-negotiable, not tolerable, right? You create that boundary for yourself, and these boundaries are also created somewhere. Your belief system gives you a perspective, so core pay and your core values give you a perspective. So boundaries are usually in sync with who you are at the core. So I will know what is not acceptable, what is non-negotiable for me basis who I am. And quite often we've never given it a conscious thought, who I am, what doesn't work for me. और जब वो बार बार compromise होता है, it leaves us disempowered. Then we lose touch with who we are. Then we are busy surviving. So creating boundaries which are in sync with my core values, who I am, and then letting people know, hey, I'm so sorry, but this doesn't work. In a polite, responsible yet assertive way, you tell people that this doesn't work for me. You communicate that, right? And having courage enough, power enough, and vulnerability enough to be authentic, to say what is, that this doesn't work for me. So those are your boundaries, which is basically you are safeguarding yourself. You are standing guard to all that doesn't serve you. You're creating boundaries to safeguard yourself from people, from things, from thoughts which don't serve you, behaviors which don't serve you, which do not honor you. And that's what boundaries are. I hope, VP Gupta ji, this clarifies what you were asking. Yeah. Okay. Great. Anything else? Anybody has boundaries, expecting others to communicate during disagreements with maturity? Yeah, so maybe, yeah, so while you may have this expectation, great point, Anshuman, while you may have this expectation that, can we agree to disagree, and can we behave in a certain way? Can we communicate in a certain way? And then setting that boundary, but also communicating that boundary to the other person. that, in such times, can we do this? So I may be expecting, I may have set it in my head that this is what I want, but can I let the other person also know? That's equally important. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Great. I think that's about it. I hope this was meaningful. If it was, let me know. Let me know what opened up for you, your perspective. Okay, I am in the context of co-working relation. If co-worker, okay, co-worker relation. If you are having expectation or boundary that the other other co-worker. Okay. So I think, are you trying to complete this question? Because okay. Yeah, so I think if you could just complete that question, I think it's incomplete. Okay, so what I'm understanding, you're saying in the context of relationship with co-workers, if you have an expectation or you have a boundary which the other co-worker should do, you feel that this is what he or she should do. You have, that's your expectation. This is how he or she should behave, right? His work is on auto mode. Okay. So I'm still not clear on the question. So what's the question? You have a certain expectation or a boundary that you've set for yourself about how the other person should behave. Okay. And his work is on auto mode. So I didn't get that. You feel that, are you saying that the other person is not aware about that and he's working in his own way? He's doing what he does. So, what should you do in such a scenario? Is that what your question is, VP Gupta, Mr. VP Gupta? Is that what you're saying, what you're asking? If that's what you're saying, then see, like I said, like I just mentioned, um, with your co-workers, you need to fundamentally understand that you two are uh, okay. So see, the co-worker. So I think fundamentally the basic remains the same, which is you need to communicate. Communication is a very important thing. You have an expectation. So one is expectation. Now you can have any kind of expectation from the other person, and it's not about right or wrong. It's just that I have the expectation is coming from where? Of my idea, coming from my idea of how it should be, how the other person should behave. What is your idea of the right way to do it, maybe? So you create an expectation from there. But the other person, number one, has no clue about it. Two, even if you have communicated, he may or he may not agree, right? He may agree, he may not agree, he may disagree. And that's where you, when you talk, you may then come to a common ground where you say you have to communicate to the other person that, within this scenario, this is what I feel. What are your thoughts around it? So giving that space to the other person to also express, you have a thought process, but you can't be imposing that on the other person. So giving space to the other person to express. And if he disagrees, then can we decide? Because clearly this one thing doesn't work for you and therefore you're talking about it, but there's something else which doesn't work for him. So can you come to a common ground? Because the context is we want to work in a powerful way, because otherwise it will impact our everyday working and it will make it miserable for us. We don't want that. So can we come to a common ground? You may not agree with me. Can I be okay with the other person not agreeing with it? And if you're saying the other person should do his job without interfering in my work, then what when something that you define or label as interference, One, you need to communicate that this is causing a little inconvenience to me. Can we agree on doing it in this way? So if you really need to discuss this with me, or if you need to figure out something, and which is why you keep on asking me again, can we agree on this one time during the week, and that's when we will discuss, for example, right? So that every day we're not doing this, every day you're not asking me, because that just leaves me a little disturbed and off track. So I wanted to let you know, can we come to a common ground? So I think whatever you're asking, it all boils down to communicating, you expressing, you being clear of what works for you and what leaves you uncomfortable, and also drawing a line, rather making a distinction, whether what is making me uncomfortable is just coming from some limiting belief. No, 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 I don't want this. It's a fear. Or is it really coming from, it's impacting my work, and I don't want to be impacted in a disempowering way. So either ways, communicating, being willing to hear the other person out, right? If you want chemistries, if you want relation, then you have to be willing to do that. Hearing the other person out, and then coming to a common ground. Disagreement ho sakta hai, again disagreement, not agreeing, maybe you need two rounds of conversations, but if the context is clear, that I want to have, for me it is important that there is no interference. If For me it is important that the person doesn't every day keep poking, and I want to communicate that, how can I do that in a responsible way, so that I'm not occurring as a threat to the other person, right? And same way, can I hear him out? Why is he doing that? Maybe as part of the team, his work depends on my work, and maybe I'm not giving him enough information for him to conduct his work, and that is why he keeps asking. So when you talk, there'll be things uh, that will open up. You'll get to know the real picture. Sometimes you may be thinking and assuming certain things, and actually aisa kuch hai hi nahi. So I think, I hope this clarifies certain things with you. Whatever I could understand of your question, I answered basis that. I hope this gives you a perspective. Yeah. So with this, I think, let's come to an let's conclude this session. I hope this was meaningful. Do reflect on this, take time, spend time, listen to this once again. My whole request would be, the whole idea of this live every Sunday is so that whatever you're dealing with, the topics, what I hear from leaders, from people, certain things that are happening, I just try and bring those here. And in whatever way you resonate, you're able to get something out of it, do that, but go ahead and implement it. Go ahead and reflect and then implement it. And when you implement, what opens up for you, do share. If you feel that, oh, something didn't work out, please come back and share. I'd be super happy to help you out, right? But do that. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you, all those of you who are here with me. I can see some of you are here. Thank you so much for staying on, for joining in, for participating. Your participation makes it worthwhile. Thank you, Mr. VP Gupta. Thank you, Anshuman. Yeah. And those of you who are here. And I'm going to see you next Sunday now with a fresh new topic. Looking forward to meeting you all there again. Till then, have a great, great, great week ahead. Enjoy a lot, and do lots of work. Yeah. Take care. Bye bye. Hi, Nitin. Yeah. So take care. Bye bye. Lots of love to all of you. Have an action packed week ahead. Bye bye.